There was a gentleman that came in to my recovery center, and he's been in my group a couple times, and he had one of those belly laughs, the Muji thing I put up in my group, and it's like he had this like laugh. He heard something about what the principles are about, and the question he had, he said, "Look, I kind of get the principles, but if I have an anxious thought, how do I get to a better thought or a different thought, right? Like how long will that last and all that, so to speak." I said, well, if you knew what the first thought was made of, you would know that the better thought you're trying to get to is made from the same thought material as the first one to begin with. So if you can see the nature of the first one, you wouldn't need a replacement thought for something that never existed really in the first place. And he heard something in that, because when we hear people that say, look, I'm having a lot of ruminating thoughts, what do I do about it, right? Well, if the question is, I'd like to get to a better thought that I'm not ruminating on, well, you have to understand that second thought is made from the same material as the first, right? When we see it from that perspective, we don't have to run away from a ruminating thought. There is no solution for the first thought that we're having or the second thought that's going to replace it. It's all made from the same thing. And he all of a sudden bursted out into laughing at the recovery center, to the point where one of the therapists came in to see if something's okay. They thought maybe they're having a breakdown. And he said, you're telling me for 41 years I've been trying to replace a thought with another one? That's what I've been doing this whole time and I didn't see it? And he said, when I asked him, what do you think? He goes, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How come no one's ever told me that? And I think that's the beauty of the principles, is that we're not trying to get to a better thought or a different thought, or even the idea that we're one thought away, as if the thought we're in is something to escape. We're just one thought away from another thought. That's all you need to know. Not one thought away. Yes, it's going to be a whole new experience, but it's going to be one thought away to another experience. And that experience is just as neutral as the one you're in, which is going to be just as neutral as the next one you're going to be in. And so from that space, there's this comfort in being uncomfortable. There's a sanity in our insanity. There is a well-being when we don't see it. There is a okayness in our depression that I think teachers like Judith and teachers like Jack are pointing us to. That's when we say beyond the words, or even beyond the fabrication of form or that thought we're in. Behind that experience, there's something that gives us that sense of comfort. And so my recovery center, people in my recovery center aren't concerned about getting to a better place anymore. That was what's causing their distress. And they thought, since they're in such a terrible state of mind, that if they can't get to somewhere better soon, the only option left is to do drugs or alcohol or a substance. But now they're saying, I have moods. And period, that's it. And I go and kiss my daughter. I feel insecure about my marriage, and I can go take my wife on a walk. I feel insecure at this job, and I can still wake up and go to work. In other words, it's not anything less but just a statement of an experience that they're aware of. Does that make sense, you guys? I don't know. I wanted to share that with you guys, but does that, because I see people getting bogged down by the one thought away thing as well. You're only one thought away, to give a sense of relief of the thought they're in right now. We don't have to feel that. We don't have to be in that space to get away from the thought we're in. Anyone want to talk about what they heard today, or any ideas, anything that's useful, or if there's a disagreement with what I just said, if that's one, go ahead and put it in my Yelp reviews. No, but yeah, is there any ideas, any thoughts so far? No? Oh, I'll go to Terry.
Hi, Amir. Thanks for having Judith on. That was awesome.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. I agree.
I saw her in Spain at the end of last year at the Viva event. She was great. I did a video today. I'm an artist, and I did a video today where the theme of it was the inner critic, art and the inner critic. So what I was talking about was this sense of creativity itself is that wordless knowing, that thing that's always happening, that is who we are. And then the inner critic kind of marches on by. You know, it's like I can rest assured whenever I sit down and do a piece of artwork, or even think about doing a piece of artwork, I have that parade kind of marching on by, right? And it just keeps marching. So the video was all about seeing that, you know, when you see that happening, there's nothing to do about it, because there's always so much emphasis on how, you know, trying to fix thought, or trying to do something with it, or get to the bottom of it, or have therapy for 100 years about it, to find out where it came from and all that stuff. So I don't know where this is going, but I think that relates pretty closely to what you're saying with working with at your facility. What I'm doing right now is working with creatives on this, because of, you know, we all have this insanity come up when we're in our creative, you know, all the insecurities kind of float to the surface when we're in our creative modes, trying to protect us, or whatever reason we think they come up for. So no question.
No, I'll tell you
maybe
what.
There's a question in there. I don't know.
No, you don't need to have a question. But what came to me right now with what you just said, this is something that happens all the time. Here, I'm going to write something. This pen. I'm going to this. Let me know which statement is true. Okay. I have this pen in my hand. I just wrote. Can you guys read that? And my handwriting's terrible. The top says this pen doesn't work, and the bottom says this pen works, or this pen works. There we go. Right? This pen doesn't work, and this pen works. Which statement is true? Which statement is true? See, here's what people don't realize. We look at these statements and think that this is saying something about the pen, but the fact that the pen wrote, even if the pen writes, this pen doesn't work, it's still working. Everything is contained in this pen. So whatever I write, once it's in form, it can lie about itself, but it's still working. So when someone says, I am insecure about myself, I don't think I have what it takes, the system is still working. You're just spitting out ink into the world, or into the world of form. And so what's brilliant about that is when people come and say, I don't think I can get this, they're not realizing they're still using the energy to say that thing that they think they can't do. They're missing the whole point, right? Is this thing has every potential to write whatever. It can write negative stuff, bad stuff. It could lie about itself. But this thing, if it was like who we are, has all of its creative energy already stored in here. It's just not been created yet. It's in here right now. This is us. This is who we are. So I love when people come into my community and say, I'm always going to be an addict, because I don't care what they're saying. If they were dead, they wouldn't be able to use a pen, right? So as long as they're alive and they're able to speak, I know that eventually the writing on the wall will change. So I'm not interested in what they're writing. I'm interested to see that they're able to use that energy. They have that availability no matter what comes out of their mouth. And that's what's promising about the principles. Most different ways of doing therapy focuses on what's been written already, right? Oh, this pen doesn't work. How long do you think your pen hasn't been working? And meanwhile, they're forgetting that it actually has been working, because they wouldn't have been able to write this in the first place if it wasn't. They wouldn't have been able to have that experience if it wasn't working. Do you get where I'm coming from, you guys? So whenever we're working with anybody, we're so ahead of the game, because they don't actually see their own brilliance. It's like me saying, I don't know how to speak English right now. Well, I'm doing it. So even my words don't have any meaning. And so that's why we don't spend a lot of time in the words. That's what Sid Banks was pointing to. It's not in the words, because whatever is able to create the words is what's giving rise to the words in the first place. That's where we go look. That's behind the words. That's the source of it all. And so even when the gentleman he's not on the line with us today, he goes, oh, I have a 2-hour talk. I don't know what to say. Well, he had a lot to say right there, and he didn't even realize it, right? He's using this energy. So here's what I would have done if I was him. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a 2-hour talk today. I have no idea what I'm going to say for the next 2 hours. And I'm actually scared and I'm nervous. And what's interesting is I'm telling you this all in real time, and I didn't know I was going to say this 2 seconds ago. Folks, where's this coming from? Do you guys know? Because I have all these experiences. Where are these experiences coming from? Are you, is anyone else nervous, or is anyone tired? Is anyone excited? Is anyone angry today? Oh, you're angry? Where's that experience coming from? Why are you having that experience and not another? That's a 2-hour conversation right there. And he didn't even realize that that's already built into him saying, I don't know what to say. Because he's focused on this part of it, and not the fact that he's able to, even when he's confused, that's still an energy that's being portrayed out into the world. Even when we have nothing to say, that's saying something, right? Even when we have nothing to say, that's saying something. So we can never lose the spiritual ink that's inside of us, the writing that comes out of our mouth, that comes through our pens and papers as musicians, or through our guitars, or through our pianos, or through our hugging our husbands and wives, or our daughters and sons. That's just that's the essence of this energy that we're just expressing in form now. That's just the stuff that this creates. So glad to be back on the call. Thank you so much. I hope this is making sense. I'm just riffing, so I hope you guys are digging it. Is there anyone else want to say anything? Yes.
I'd just like to say that I want to thank you very much for the last book that you wrote. I got a copy of it and read it, and I think it's one of the simplest, most understandable books I've read on the 3 principles for somebody that's just starting out. And thank you so much for doing that. Just appreciate it.
Oh, that is so kind. Thank you. That actually means a lot. And it wouldn't have actually happened without the group members here, because it was their questions that prompted me to write it. So thank you. It was fun to write, and a little bit vulnerable, but I got through it. Anyone else? What's the name of the book? It's called Don't Eat Calapacha by Yourself. No, it's called What the F Are the 3 Principles? What the F Are the 3 Principles? And it actually came out in audio now. So for those that are don't want to read it, you can have the audio. So Helen gives me a thumbs up. But any final thoughts, any questions, any ideas? Anyone doing Yes.
Right. My question goes back to using the 3 principles in your coaching sessions. Would you say that you prefer to use metaphors and examples, a lot of examples as going around in order to make people see it and understand it? Or do you say it's more useful just to go with it and speak about the nature of thought and consciousness and mind, and take that avenue in order to create some understanding?
Fair question. I'm going to pose the question back to you and see what your response is. Okay. If you're going to go hang out with your friends, right? Do you go into the conversation with your friends with, oh, I'm going to say a couple jokes before we start so they know that I'm having a good time? Or in other words, when you show up with your friends, how do you know how to show up?
Well, I show up as a friend, which to me is not exactly the same as a coach. The relationship is a bit different there. As a friend, I'm just there to support and sympathize, or whether just to listen and make them feel better, and that's it. But with coaching, I feel like there is something deeper involved that I like to get to.
So you just beautifully summarized. When I go to the recovery, I'm there to listen and support and do what shows up. When I'm with my friends, I'm there to listen and support and seize what shows up. When I'm speaking to doctors, you know what I do? With doctors, it's a little bit different. I listen and I sit there and I support them. But if I work with someone who's an astronaut, here, I got to tell you this one. I listen and I sit there and I support them. See, we're the ones that make up this idea called coaching. And then we make up this idea that we need to show up a certain way. We're talking to humans. That's the first step, right? We're talking to humans. I remember I gave the analogy of like someone drowning in the ocean and someone going, so Amir, would you call yourself a good Samaritan or a life coach or a good swimmer or a, what's it called? People that go jump in the water, what are they called? That help people? What is it? A body, what is it?
Lifeguard.
Lifeguard, there we go. Do you call yourself, thank you. Do you call yourself a lifeguard or a life coach? Or I just jump in the water, right? We're the ones that are overly concerned on what it looks like. And the funny thing is, when I jump in the water, my only job is to show them that they've never been drowning in the first place. Now, if they want to call me a coach, call me a coach. If they want to call me a friend, call me a friend. In other words, I don't concern myself with that because it's a lot less relevant when we're working with people. Because that's just for me in my experience, and this is me. You don't have to buy into what I'm saying. This is what I've seen, right? When we get away from making up what we think it's supposed to look like, we're left with two people having a conversation, and that's what people are in need of. That's what people are in need of. And why I asked you, you know, what you say with your friends, because the truth of the matter is when we're with our friends, we don't do that either. We don't go, oh, I'm with my friends now I got to be a friend. We just show up, right? We don't go, well, maybe you do. I don't, you know. I'll take it back. We're Persian. So we actually do. With Persians, when we're with our parents, we have to do the parent thing. And that's maybe cultural for us. And when with our friends, we can act differently, but you don't say the same things you say with your friends to your parents because your parents think you're always going to be a doctor or an attorney or something. That's all they know. You're the most brilliant kid. But the truth is, I'll give you a secret, you know, when it comes to helping people, you help people. That's it. I don't have any other way of doing it. I sit and I listen and I support them just like you beautifully said you do with your friends. Did that make sense for anyone, or is there anyone that decides no, that possibly can't be the way?
Yeah. It's Helen. Hi.
Hi, Helen.
Hi. It's interesting because I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I've got some of that going on. The idea that for myself as a coach, that I need to be something that I'm not. And I know you've probably experienced this with a lot of people, especially in your recent, you know, course you've been running, I'm guessing. I saw one interview that you did, and I think you held up a piece of paper and said, here's your certification. And, you know, I had similar ideas. So that's helpful to hear for me too. I've told myself that. I've told myself no. And I remember what you've said this before about supporting, loving, turning up, showing up, not knowing what you're going to say. But I still tend to come up against that idea. You know, coming up against it isn't quite right. But there's somewhere in the back of my mind that I'm thinking that's not what I am. You know, which is ludicrous, you know, and I'm aware of it in some way, but it's still there, like a little bugbear kind of annoying me a bit, you know. And I've just been listening to The Enlightened Gardener, and I've listened to it so many times and absolutely loving it. And the way the gardener just spoke to the people who were the doctors and the people who knew. So that's really, so what you're saying now is really reminding me of how the gardener spoke to the doctors,
Yeah.
and how he said, "I don't know what you guys know, and I'm a simple man," and how loving and caring he was. I know it's just a story, but it's like it felt almost like listening to Sid Banks really sitting there talking to me as if I was one of the doctors, you know. So thank you, Amir.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Helen. And I have a story about that. At my recovery center, I did like an audit. I wanted to talk to the group and see what was been the most useful thing for them. And I've shared the story before, but I'll share it again. I think it's really important. And I thought they were going to say it's the principles or what you shared, the Michael Neal videos or the Jamie Smart videos or the books you gave us. It was none of that. They said every week, for 2 hours a week, I don't have to be an addict and I can take a break for a minute. And I don't have to hear someone tell me what I need to do, what I don't need to do, what I'm doing right or wrong. I just get to be me. And it's been so liberating because it's been so long that I've been there. And then that's when I went, holy shit. I thought, just like Dr. Pettit, I thought I was doing all the work. I thought I was, my song and dance about the principles was getting people to change. It turns out when they have freedom to be themselves, they get to see.
Do you know what I'm thinking now, Amir? Yeah. You know, I'm like the addict now who right now talking to you doesn't have to be a coach for 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
After years of saying, what do I need to be? You know, to be that and not to be. In other words, not to be me. You know, not to be who I'm being. You know, it's not quite as clear as that, but something along those lines that. I need a break from that, you know, so you drive yourself crazy, you know, trying to, you know, it's so silly, really, what we do.
Yeah, it's human. Well, yeah, right. It's like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to a group and tell them that the ideas you made up about yourself is made up, but don't forget I'm a coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how does that work out, right? Like that's the thing in of itself is ironic. Now, Sia, to your response, I have to say, and maybe you're talking about this. Yes, do I put stuff in my calendar? Yes. Am I professional when I get on the calls? Yes. Do I treat the calls differently and close the doors and there's not children running around? Yes. That's just practical purposes. But when all that's taken care of, I'm just talking from one person to another, right?
Yeah.
That's the coachiest I get is the environment that I put. You know, maybe I'll put some candles because they paid me some money. But besides that, like, I don't do much else, right? I just get on a call and I have conversations, right? And if they give me, you know, a lot of money, I put a couple candles, you know? So.
Yeah. And I'll say one other thing.
Yes.
What I picked up, when I found out about the principles, it was brilliant in so many ways, blah, 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 you know, about 2.5 years ago. And it changed a lot for me. But it sort of is like an added, which sounds ludicrous to say it out loud, an added burden, because I feel a responsibility to, I know I can't change anyone or make them be different or make them see something that they're not going to see, and they need to have an insight, and that's their journey and their story. But I feel a certain responsibility. Oh, you know, all I'm doing is touching them on the shoulder or asking them a simple question, saying something. I don't know what I'm going to say that might wake them up to something. I mean, they're already wide awake, but help them, point them. Don't look at my finger, look at what I'm trying to point at. And that to me, I said, oh, they've got to see this. There's a little bit of, wow, if they could see this, you know, how wonderful it would be. And that feels a little bit like I'm something more I've got to bring.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And eventually that won't matter either, right? That, like, the whether it's calling it tapping on the shoulders or whatever, we just start living. And people that hear it hear, and people that don't, and people that want to pay me, people that don't. And it's just it gets very difficult to decide. Sia, what was your you had a question?
Yes, it goes back, follow up to my previous question. To me, it seems like when we show up as a friend, when we show up as a coach, the container is different. Because coaching is not based on what people need is based on what they want, and they come and ask you for. And with that, to me, I would show with having all the purities and love and connection and compassion of a friend. Still, as you touched on, it to me it feels like it has a different container. That was what I meant when I said I see the difference. Possibly it's not that deep, what I'm touching on could be just the logistics or the environment, or I don't know, but it just doesn't feel exactly the same somehow.
Yeah, and that's fair, and if that's what it looks like to you, by all means, I have nothing to say, right? I'm just telling you from my opinion. I don't know with me if love has a container. Like when my daughter came out, I didn't say, well, now I'm going to love from a container that she's my daughter, and now I'm going to love my wife from this container. Eventually, you start to see that the container's made up, right? Like what love doesn't have a container, it just is. It doesn't look discriminatory based on what it's loving. It just is. It's just what it is. And connecting or listening is not, that is its own container. Is when we are with somebody, the listening is included, the love is included, the compassion is included. That is the container. The container isn't the person. The container is the thing that we show up with, right? Like a flashlight, that is the container. The flashlight, it doesn't care if it's pointing to a friend or a client. Once you shine the light on them, they're going to be able to see more. So I'm not interested in figuring out who I need to speak to. My only thing is to shine my light. Because what turns out is when I shine my light, it lights up something that they haven't seen within themselves. And that makes my job really easy at that point. Then I don't have to go every single time when I'm talking to someone, okay, am I talking to a friend? Look, I have clients that are best friends. I have clients that are friends. I have clients that are family members. I have clients, that older Persian women that make a lot more money. That may sound strange to you, but a lot of times you're not supposed to help someone that makes more money or is older than you in our culture. Typically, they're supposed to tell us how life goes. And so now here I am, a young guy, telling this Fortune 500 millionaire about how life works. Now she had a really tough time telling her friends because she's like, Amir, help me out. But eventually she started to figure out why. Because she still had that idea that I'm a older Persian woman that makes a lot of money, which means I can't tell people. Well, I was able to lift that for herself as well. So she was more liberated. So again, that's my opinion. That's not, I'm not telling you guys that this is how you guys should do it, but in my experience, the less I look in that direction of how to do it, it shows up automatically. It shows up organically. And yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Sia. Any final thoughts? I think that was good. That was fun. I'm glad you guys came. I mean, this was a cool little impromptu thing. I'm glad you guys showed up. If there's anything you guys want to talk about, like I said, I'm going to be doing, this is the kind of stuff I'm going to be doing in my group, the VIP group that I've been talking about. I'm still working on it. It should be up in maybe a month, but if this is cool and you guys like these kind of stuff, we'll continue it over there. And with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. And that was awesome having you guys and your questions and responses. You guys are the best. And I will talk to you guys soon. And that's right. You point them into the direction of your innate health. And that's all there's to it. Not any simpler or harder than that. Sia, Khudafis, merci. And I will see you guys soon. Take care.
Thank you. Sepas. Thank you.
Khudafis.
Khudafis.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.